is one of the worst feelings on earth? What is one? Yeah, regrets for sure up there. What is one of the worst feelings on earth? Yeah, you guys got answers. Good. I'll tell you one of the ones that I hate the most, and that is the feeling of running out of options. Like where you're in a situation and your choices just start dwindling. Like I think back to when my son Axton, I think he was 3 at the time. And we do I do these things with my kids. My daughter's name's Alicia, my son's name's Axton. And we would do either D&E or DNA days. You know, Dad and Alicia, Dad and Axton. And we do these days where like we just go out and do some fun stuff. And on one occasion, was with Axton. He was 3. We would do this thing where we lived at the time, you could walk from our house to a Jamba Juice, and then you could walk from there to a park. And so I would take them, and they had a playground and stuff like that. And I would take them, and we'd go get Jamba Juice, and then we'd go to the park and play, and then we'd walk home. We'd do this on Saturday mornings. We'd let Kim, my wife, sleep in, and it'd be this thing that we would do. And one time, we go to get Jamba Juice, and we go to the playground, and we're playing, and we're having a good time. And so we start walking back to our house. And on the way back, he says, "Daddy, I've got to poop." Now, in this moment, options are your friends. But I look to see where our house is. I look back to see where the park is that has very unclean restrooms that I'm aware of. How far? How far? How far? Are you sure you got to poop? Yes. How far? How far? It's like, okay, we're going to try to make it home. Let's go. And so we start booking it, come on. And he's doing it's like, that ain't going to get there, bro. And so the time is ticking, options are running out. So I pick him up to make this journey go a little bit faster. I want to start, I myself am no track athlete, but we're gonna try to make this go. And guys, options ran out. Time ran out. It was not pretty. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna change the plan here. I got to call Kim and have her come pick us up. We don't need to walk this. But it's no fun when you run out of options. Maybe for you can understand the feeling of like, you got a paper due in 2 weeks, or you've got a presentation at work due in 2 weeks, and every single day something is coming up. And you're like, I just need some space to work on my project. I just need, this is important for my department at work. Or I just got to get this paper written. And day after day after day, new crisis wants to emerge. New thing comes up, and your options are dwindling, and the time is running out. And then it gets to be the night before, and you've got to go in and present. And you're like, if I could just maybe sleep, that'll at least be something. But it's like 11:30, and you're like, I need to go to sleep. I need to go to sleep. And then it's 12. And then it's 12:30. And you're like, and trying to go to sleep and thinking about tomorrow is actually making you way more awake. And you're like, I'm going to go in exhausted. And with every 15 minutes that pass, you're like, you look at the clock and you're just that much more out of options. Or maybe for you, it's not a work project or something like that. Maybe it's something financial. Like I remember when Kim and I were first married, and we'd been only married a couple years. Our daughter was like still she under 2, yeah, because I remember carrying the thing. And we were doing that. By the way, what I'm about to tell you is no way a recommendation for how to live life. This is just what we were doing at the time. But we were parents. We were married. We were both college students, and we were both working. Not good for time management's sake, not good for mental health at all, but we were doing it, and so one day, Kim's car decides that it just needs to break down. And it's like, okay, so she calls me, and I come pick her up, and then we do that thing where we're trying to figure out, okay, we got one vehicle between us. Let's see, if we get up at this time, we can get Alicia to the daycare at this time. I can take you to work. I can be over at class. Actually, no, you need to keep the car. You just drop me at class and you go to work and then I'll meet it. And you do the time thing where you're like, you arrange all of the blocks and you get the schedule lined out as well as you can. And you're like, okay, this is where we're at. This is, our options are dwindling, but that's fine. And so we figure it out that day. Your cars break down. We take it to the shop. Do you know what happens the very next day? Yes, my car breaks down. And you're like, Jesus, this is not the deal I signed up for. Like, God, I'm one of yours, God. Like, what you doing this to me for? And your options are gone. Maybe for you, it's not financial. Maybe for you, it's a relational issue, You've done all the things. You've done all the date nights. You've talked to the people. You've tried to be more listening, and it's just going nowhere. The relationship is going nowhere, and day after day, you see the options dwindling. Maybe for you, it's something medical, and you're like, you changed the diet, you did the tests, you took the medications, and it's not getting better. The numbers are not improving, and the options are dwindling. And I don't know what you would fill the blank in for your situation or your story today, but one of the most universal truths of being human is that we find ourselves in places where the options are running out. Sometimes it's not even our fault. You didn't do anything wrong. They cheated. And now you got to figure out how to do life with a lot less money, a lot less security, a lot more bills. You didn't do anything wrong. It was your boss that decided to be all stupid, and now there's layoffs. And you got to figure out what to do because somebody else doesn't know how to do their job. We've all been there. What do you do in situations where the options are running out? And what we're going to look at today is one of my favorite stories in the Gospels. It's a wild story. It's really interesting. A lot happens in it, but we're going to be in Mark chapter 5. So if you have a Bible or a Bible app on your phone, we're going to be in Mark chapter 5, and we're going to look at a man who had completely run out of options and take a look at just what he did or what happened to him. So in Mark chapter 5, starting at verse 1, this is what it says. When it talks about they, it's talking about Jesus and the disciples. Starting at verse 1. They went across the lake to the region of the Gerasenes. When Jesus got out of the boat, a man with an impure spirit came from the tombs to meet him. This man lived in the tombs, and no one could bind him anymore, not even with a chain, for he had often been chained hand and foot, but he tore the chains apart and broke the irons on his feet. No one was strong enough to subdue him. Now here's a man that is out of options. How do we know that he's out of options? Because you don't live in a cemetery when you have options. Like, here's a man who has no more couches to crash on. Whatever friends he's had, he has burned through those relationships. They got tired of week after week and month after month him being like, no, man, I ain't got rent this month. Can you cover me? He's broken enough things. He's damaged enough relationships. He's done enough to where they're just tired of it. He's gone. And so he is run out of options of places to stay. And not only that, he's run out of relationships. And yet the sad part about this is you can take a look at this and tell he still really wants to be around people. Because why is he hanging out in the cemetery? Like, if based on the region of this where the story takes place, if he just wanted to be away from everybody, he could have just gone further out into the desert. He could have just been like, there was opportunities there to go to a place where no one would know him. No one would see him. No one would care. But he's figured out that he can be as close to people as the cemetery. That's kind of where the dividing line is. He can't get any closer because of the condition that he's in. And every time he does get closer, the text tells us that it doesn't go well, that he gets chained up, that he gets locked up, that he gets put in somewhere where he's not a danger to himself or a danger to others. And even then, that doesn't work because every single time he breaks out, the condition he has is stronger than the chains that are holding him. And so he breaks free of the chains, and then he runs and he escapes. And about as close as he can get to civilization is to hang out in the cemetery, to hang out amongst the tombs. Verse 5 tells us just how bad it actually gets. It says in verse 5, night and day among the tombs and in the hills, he would cry out and cut himself with stones. It's crazy how Scripture can stay super relevant for thousands of years. It's crazy how the conditions then we see today. The hope in this is that the devil has run out of tricks. The stuff he did back then is the stuff he does now. And so let's keep going. But this man is he's in about the lowest point that he can possibly be in life. Verse 6, when he saw Jesus from a distance, he ran and fell on his knees in front of him. I cannot imagine what this man's situation was. Like, what compels him to do this? What compels him to want to go forward? Because he knows he can't be around people. He knows it's not working out when he does. He knows, but he sees Jesus, and I don't know if this is something he does with every new person that comes into the area. Like he'll go try anything for help. I don't know if he's heard of Jesus before. I don't know if something inside him is compelling him to where he's like, you know what, we're going to try this. We're going to, whatever. I don't know if God is calling him to his son Jesus. I don't know why, but the man is like, look, I'm going to try this. I have no other options. I'm going to go try talking to Jesus. I'm going to go see what that's like. And maybe some of you, that's your story here in the room. You're like, look, man, I don't know if I believe this stuff. But everything else isn't working either. And so you're here today. And then I'm glad you're here. This is a good day to be here. Let's keep reading. Verse 7. He shouted at the top of his voice, "What do you want with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? In God's name, don't torture me." For Jesus had said to him, "Come out of this man, you impure spirit." This is weird. Because I don't know how much you know about the Bible. I don't know how many times you've read through the Gospels. There are no stories of Jesus torturing anybody. Like, it does not, like, that's not something, that was not one of Jesus's, like, go-to moves, torture. Like, no, it does not happen. And so for these spirits to say to Jesus, "Please don't torture me," you're like, why are they coming up with that? And then you realize that evil always tells on itself. Like, why do they think that's what Jesus is going to do? Oh, because that's exactly what they've been doing to this man. Like, they've been torturing him. And so they're like, oh, well, you know what? Jesus is going to do to us exactly what we've been doing. Evil always tells on itself. It always creates its own reality. The person who lies all of the time eventually believes everyone is lying to him. The person who cheats all the time eventually thinks everyone is cheating them. The problem is that sin and evil creates a distorted reality, and that you start to believe what you do is what everybody does, and you don't see. And so when they're talking to Jesus, they're like, "Jesus, please don't torture us," because that's what they assume happens when you encounter someone. It keeps going on. The story gets even more interesting. Then Jesus asked him, "What is your name?" "My name is Legion," he replied, "for we are many." And he begged Jesus again and again not to send him out of the area. Now, I'm not quite sure why they asked Jesus to stay in the area. Like, maybe they're thinking, well, Jesus goes from town to town. He travels around. What we'll do is we'll just lay low. Jesus will leave, and then we'll come back in and we'll capture this man again. Maybe that. Maybe they're just like, hey, you know what? We've done a lot of work here. This place is pretty miserable. This place is pretty hopeless. This place doesn't have a lot of good things happening. Like, we've put a lot of work in here. Even if we can't be inside this guy, we're still going to keep spreading misery in the general area. I don't know. I know, but you guys have experienced this. Let me explain this. You have walked into, I guarantee you have walked into someone's home, or you've walked into an environment before, and without anybody saying a word, you've experienced the atmosphere of that room. Sometimes in a positive way. You've walked into a house and no one has said a word, no one said anything, that you're like, oh, wow, this place feels peaceful. This place feels happy. And you're like, and it's not because they have really good decor either. It's not like, oh, yeah, man, they did a good job here. No, like sometimes you've walked into a place and you're just like, there's a spirit here of like kindness and goodness and like happiness and gentleness. You've also walked into places, and once again, without anybody saying a word, without anybody telling you what's going on, you're like, something's wrong. And once again, it's not about the decor. It'd be like beautiful, and then you're like, people are fighting in here. No one said a word yet, but you can just walk in, you're like, something isn't right. Something is off about this place. And I have to believe the demons had done some work in this region. They had done some work in this area, and they did not want Jesus to like, no, man, we've been putting in the work. We got to stay here. So like Jesus said, we'll leave the man. Just do not send us out of this area. And so the story continues, and it gets even more bizarre. Mark 5:11. A large herd of pigs was feeding on the nearby hillside. The demons begged Jesus, send us among the pigs, allow us to go into them. Apparently, like Jesus negotiates. He gave them permission, and the impure spirits came out and went into the pigs. The herd, about 2,000 in number, rushed down the steep bank into the lake and were drowned. Do you guys see how evil ends up creating its own destruction here? Like, they're like, Jesus, don't send us out of the region. And Jesus is like, yeah, we're going to send you out of the region. They're like, well, no. Send us into the pigs, Jesus. Send us into the pigs. And Jesus is like, you don't know what you're asking. I mean, I ain't going to tell you what's going to happen, but you don't know what you're asking. And here's the deal. The pig, I don't know how many demons were actually in this guy. I don't. We know that there were 2,000 pigs. It might have been that there were 2,000. It might have just simply been that when like enough of them went in the pigs and the pigs freaked out, the whole herd freaked out. You ever been in part of a crowd and everybody starts freaking out and running and you're like, I bet something bad's happening. I don't know what's happening, but something bad's happening. So you're like, I'm getting out of the area. I'm leaving. And so I don't know if that's what the rest of the pigs were doing, but clearly they all get spooked. And they're apparently, I don't know if it was like, I don't know how steep this bank was. I don't know if it was like a solid straight drop or if it was just like, pretty steep, but whatever. The pigs freak out because they're not equipped to handle all of this evil suddenly flooding inside of them. They freak out. They go down the steep bank and they drown. And guess what? The demons no longer have a body to inhabit. And so like evil is its own destruction. On a long enough timeline, not in the short term, but on a long enough timeline, evil always ends up destroying itself because it's not sustainable. It's not sustaining. It can't keep doing it. And so Jesus is like, yeah, you really want to go in the pigs? You think what you've been doing to this guy is going to work there? Okay. And he lets them do it. And then the pigs go and drown. But once again, the story is not over. The story keeps going. It's crazy. Verse 14. Those tending the pigs ran off and reported this in the town and countryside, and the people went out to see what had happened. Can you imagine being the guy whose job it is to watch the pigs? Like, you're like, that's not a job that you're like, you do a lot of training for. It's not like you got a degree in pig management. You're like, man, this is some guy who just needs a job, He's like, I need some money, and, Pigco over there is hiring. And, okay. Oh, it's a pretty simple job. Yeah, you just kind of keep them safe. You just watch them. Don't let them go down the steep bank. You do that and you're fine. And so you're just out there and, it's a Thursday and you're just doing your job and pigs are okay. They're just, doing what pigs do, eating. I don't know. I'm not a farmer. And they're just they're just moving around. Okay, we got this covered. There's a couple of us because there's 2,000 pigs. That's a lot of pigs. And so we're watching this, and it's going well. And then they're like, oh, it's that one dude. Yep, he's back. Okay, but he's talking to somebody. He's over there talking to somebody that showed up in a boat. We're okay. Doesn't look like he's coming over here. Okay, fine, that's fine. And then out of nowhere, the whole herd of pigs just freak out and go down. And you're like, oh, man, I am so fired. Like, I didn't do nothing wrong. I was just here. And so they decide they're going to get out ahead of this. They're like, you know what? We're going back and we're telling our side of the story first. So here's what happened. I wasn't doing anything. The pigs freaked out. They ran off the embankment and they drowned themselves. Like I was awake. I wasn't drinking on the job. I wasn't doing anything. The pigs did it themselves, okay? And the people are like, what? Like, what are you talking about? And so they go out to see what had happened. Verse 15. When they came to Jesus, they saw the man who had been possessed by the legions of demons. They're like, oh, okay, him again. Fair enough. He's sitting there. He's dressed, so he's not naked anymore. And he's in his right mind. And the most nonsensical words in the Bible come next. And they were afraid. They weren't afraid when he was naked and raving and living in the tombs. You're like, yeah, that's Tuesday. We get that. Yeah, that's Wednesday. That's a normal day. But he's sitting there, and he's in his right mind, and he's in clothes, and I'm assuming that he's been telling Jesus and the disciples his story about, this is what life has been like for me. The people come and see this, and they are afraid. Why? Why were you afraid now and not afraid when he was being all crazy and things were happening? I have a theory that they're afraid because, kind of like the demons, they're afraid of what Jesus is going to do. Because here's the deal. Remember all those days, guys, when we didn't help this guy out? And now he's normal again? Remember all those days when we thought the best thing to do was chain him up? And that's about as far as our care and concern would go. Remember all those days when we're like, yeah, let's just keep him over there and keep us over here. It's better that way. Now some guy showed up, freedom of all the demons, the pigs are gone, and man, what is he going to do to us? It keeps going. Verse 16. Those who had seen it told the people what had happened to the demon-possessed man. And they told about the pigs as well, man. They're concerned about their job. Not only is he healed, but guys, also the pigs. Verse 17. Then the people began to plead with Jesus to leave the region. Weird. Hey, Jesus, love what you did for my guy over here. Can you leave now? And then when I think about it, it makes sense. Because, now, I'm not a farmer. I looked this up. If I'm wrong, someone who knows way more about this stuff than me, come and tell me after the service, and I'll post it online. This is the modern-day equivalent for 2,000 pigs, in terms of how much that's worth, is somewhere between $250,000 and $350,000. Imagine being the guy that owned the pigs. Hey, Jesus, great on you, bro. Love what you're doing. Love the healing. Can you leave? Because my bottom line can't really take a $250,000 hit, man. Sorry. And the other people in the town are like, I got a little business myself. What's he going to do with that? And the crazy thing is that we know that in the kingdom of God, God will gladly spend $350,000 for one person. We won't. That's not how we figure things. That's not, he's like, you know what, Jesus, let's get this salvations per head number down a little bit. Can we get it maybe below, I don't know, below $200,000 a person? I mean, can we maybe do it for, I don't know, $20? Jesus, if I gave you $20, would you heal somebody and free them and not wreck my bit? And so the town is like, I'm not mad that he's not naked and running around anymore. I'm cool with that. I just don't want it to cost me anything. I just don't want to have to make me uncomfortable to make it happen, Jesus. I don't want to have to make more room, make more seats. I don't want to have to do that kind of stuff. It makes me uncomfortable. It's a little inconvenient. Jesus, can you go? I'm happy for you to go do that the next town over. I'm happy for you to heal the people that I don't have to see and I don't have to interact with. Can you leave? What a stupid response. But the story keeps going. So Jesus is like, yeah, sure, guys, I'll take you up on it. Look to the next verse. As Jesus was getting into the boat, the man who had been demon-possessed begged to go with him. Jesus did not let him, but said, go home to your own people and tell them how much the Lord has done for you and how he has had mercy on you. Guys, I have to admit, this is really unfair of Jesus. Like, what do you read about Jesus doing in all the other stories? He tells somebody something and he's like, come, follow me, come, follow me, come, follow me. And everyone's like, yes, thank you, Jesus. And he's got these crowds that follow him and they love what he's doing. And this time he's like, nah, bro, I'm gonna need you to stay here. And the guy's like, wait. Like, Jesus, I could come with you and maybe I could tell some people where you're going next, what you did for me. Like, I get the idea of telling people what you did for me, but how about we do it in the next town or the town after that? Like Jesus, you really want me to stay here with the people I grew up with, the people that were not nice to me, the people who were not kind to me, the people who would not let me sleep on their couch, the ones who did not let me use their spare room, the ones who said I was a problem, the ones who chained me up. Like, Jesus, do you understand what you are asking me? You're wanting me to stay here with them. And Jesus is like, yeah. I want you to stay, and I want you to keep telling your story. The guy's like, why? Like, do you know how much time and effort I've spent trying to not have to be here? Like, you really want me? And Jesus is like, yeah, I want you to tell your story, because your story is a story that deserves to be told. And it's a story that they need to hear. Because every time you tell your story, here's what's going to happen. There's a couple things that are going to happen. Every time you tell your story, the things that have been done to you are going to lose a little bit less power over you. And every time you tell your story, the goodness of God is going to grow a little bit more in who you are. And so when you see Clark down the street and you're like, hey, Clark, let me tell you about what Jesus did for me that you never would. Like, hey, Tim, Steve, guess what? Jesus changed my life. Yeah, he changed my life, and I'm not bitter at you anymore. And I mean that in a week. And every single interaction, every single time the man tells his story, he becomes more and more of who he was created to be. Every time he tells his story, he gets to have what was done to him lose a little more power over him. And so Jesus is like, yeah, I need you to stay. And it's not done. The story keeps going. And so the next verse simply says, so the man went away and began to tell in the Decapolis how much Jesus had done for him. And all the people were amazed. That word Decapolis, it just simply means the 10 cities. This place where this man was and the place where this story takes place, it was a region of like 10 small little cities that were all scattered about. And so what does the man do? He takes Jesus up on his word and he's like, okay, I'm going to just start telling him. And he goes from in this whole little region where everybody knows who he is, people know his story, and he just starts telling them what God had done. And what I love about this story is how very real it is. And you're like, Jeremy, this is a story about a guy who was demon-possessed and a herd of pigs that jumped. Like, that's not real. Like, that's not Tuesday. That doesn't happen all the time. Like, this seems like one of the crazier stories. Now, here's what I mean when I say I love that, how real this is. Because what I really want this story to end with is a nice little bow. And the town comes out and they're like, we're sorry for how we treated you. Come on, let's have a picnic. And it's like, woo, and like everybody celebrates it. No, that's not what happens. The guy has to go back to the people that he does not want to be around. He has to go back to people who were not kind to him. He has to keep staying in the town that I'm pretty sure he wishes he could have left. And he has to be there week after week, day after day. And he has to see how God works in the mess. Like, I would love it if the story was like, and then he moved into a new town and he got himself a new job and he, said sayonara to that town, never looked back and, burned it down as he was leaving. He's like, yeah, we're forgetting this place. God is good. And maybe he doesn't burn it down when you say God is good, but you know what I'm saying. Like, he's in a new chapter of his life. But no, he stays and he keeps talking to the people he'd rather not be around about how good God is. And guess what happens? We're going to keep reading. Take a look over at Mark 7:31. It's going to be on the screen if you don't have it. It says, "Then Jesus left the vicinity of Tyre and went through Sidon down to the Sea of Galilee and into the region of the..." So Jesus has come back. It's a couple chapters later, but Jesus has come back. Okay, now, if you have a Bible or a Bible app, turn to Mark chapter 8. And somebody tell me, does anybody here have a heading at the top of Mark chapter 8? Does anybody have like a little phrase where it says what's going on? What does yours say? Jesus feeds the 4,000. Okay, perfect. Here's the deal. Jesus is back in the Decapolis, and 4,000 people now want to see him. The last time he was there, they said, "Go away." What happened in 2 chapters? Like, what happened where, now you got to also remember, like, how did people measure crowds back then? People measured crowds by just counting the men. So, like, how many men are present? 4,000? All right, that's the size of the crowd. They did not count women and children. So, if there's 4,000 people in this crowd, that means there's probably closer to 10,000 or more, depending on how many kids were present and stuff like that. And so, there are 10,000 people that now want to see and hear and be a part of what Jesus is doing. Why? The last time he was in this region, they said, "Go away. We don't want you." Why? Because one man kept telling his story over and over and over and over and over again, to the point where, and think about this. Think about what was probably happening. Because first they ask Jesus to leave, and then they see that this guy's life is really changed. And they're like, "Oh my gosh, how stupid were we? Like, we were so stupid. We were worried about money. We were worried about pigs. We were worried about being uncomfortable. And guess what? We asked Jesus to leave, and now he's gone. And guess what? He ain't coming. Like, they're probably, he ain't coming back. So, like, awesome for the dude that got healed. But I wish I could get healed. I wish grandma could be in a better position. I wish, like the situation I'm in, I wish there could be some hope for that. I'm kind of feeling like I'm out of options." And like, guys, we were so stupid. We asked Jesus to leave, and now he's gone. And now we're stuck here. So awesome for the dude that's telling a story. I wish I could have a story like that. I wish I could be something like that. And then in Mark chapter 8, Jesus shows back up again in the region, and the people come flocking to him. Like, they are like, hey, Timmy, you got some issues. You're going to come see Jesus with me. Like, we're getting this thing fixed. Hey, grandma, get her on the stretcher, get her in the wheelchair. We're going to go see Jesus. Thousands of people show up to where he's at. In fact, the whole reason it's called the miracle of feeding the 4,000 is because the people had gone days without it. They were so desperate to be around Jesus. They were so desperate to get a little bit of what he was doing that they're like, "I don't care if I don't have to eat for days. I am not missing my opportunity to be around Jesus." And thousands get to come to Jesus. Thousands get fed by Jesus. Thousands get healed by Jesus. Thousands get to have a new opportunity in their life because one guy who nobody wanted to be around said, "I can tell my story. I can do that." And so there's a couple things that I'm like, man, I just want you guys to know today. Some things I want you to be able to carry with you. The first thing is this: you can come back from the evil that's been done to you. Like, you can come back from the evil that has been done to you. I don't know what that evil is. And let me say this. I don't also want to pretend that it's super fast. When we read these stories in the Bible, we're like the number of times in the Bible the word immediately appears, and then you find out it was like 15 years. And you're like, that's a very long immediately. And like, so here's the deal. Like, but you can come back from the evil done to you. It might take days. The healing process might take a long, long time. But you can come back. You can come back. You can come back from the things that they told you that you were like, no one should have ever been told that. You can come back from the things that were done to you that should have never been done to you. You can come back from a situation where you're like, oh, life is over. The dream has died. You can come back. Not because you're so strong. You tried being strong. That lasted a couple weeks. You can come back because that's how good our God is. You can come back because God has more for you. You can come back because evil does not get to have the last word in the kingdom of heaven. You can come back from the evil that has been done to you. It's the entire story of the Bible, over and over again, person after person. You can come back from the evil that has been done to you. Secondly, your comeback can help bring another person back. Your comeback can help bring another person back. We don't know how many people this guy affected, but let's think about where he was. In the tombs, naked, harming himself, kept away from everyone else. Not the person that you vote most likely to make a world impact, okay? But here's the deal. God does more with our story than we could ever possibly imagine. God does more with what we have. So it's not dependent on, what are your natural skills? Are you gifted at public speaking? Do you have a really cool presentation? How are you with No, it's like, okay, I'm going to turn my story over to God, and then I'm going to let God do with that whatever he wants, however he wants to do it, whatever that looks like. God specializes in taking your story and transforming it for other people. It's what he does. One of my heroes in ministry is a woman named Christine Kane. And the first time I ever heard her speak at this conference, I was just like rocked. I was blown away. I was like, this is one of the best talks I've ever heard in my life. And then I heard her share her story again. And I heard her at a different conference in a different talk, and I was like, she just said the exact same thing. And I was like, okay, yeah, whatever, sometimes speakers do that. Like, to be totally honest, I've preached this passage before. I'm not going to cast shade. I don't have to throw shade on her. But, then I was at a different conference, exact same story, exact same talk. And then I heard her over and over again, and she gives the same talk over and over and over and over, and I was like, what is she doing? And then finally, I heard her sit down at this panel interview, and one of the people asked her, they're like, Christine, you can be talking about, I don't know, the weather in Florida, and somehow it always leads back to your story. Why do you do that? And she goes, because I want everyone to know that when I was born, I was unnamed and unwanted. She tells us every single time, and it gets me every single time. She's like, I literally did not have a name. I was a number. I was given up by my parents. I do not know who they are. And I was unnamed and I was unwanted. And she says, and every single time she'll say, and I was abused and molested for years. And I tell that story every single time because if God can work a miracle in my life, he can work a miracle in somebody else that's listening. And he did. So every single time she tells this story, every single time. And she says, I will never stop telling this story because I want someone to know that what God did in my life, he could do in mine. And then she has this quote, and I love it. It's such a good quote. She says, sometimes when you're in a dark place, you think you've been buried, but you've actually been planted. And I'm like, oh, yes. Now here's the deal. Let me just say this. God did not cause the thing that happened to you, but he can redeem it. God did not make evil. Evil is the antithesis of God and who he is, but God can redeem it. And some of you right now, you're like, man, why am I stuck in Toledo? Like, I'm supposed to be in like a really big city right now doing really important things. Or some of you are like, man, why am I stuck in Toledo? I'm supposed to be out in the country on like 80 acres, just growing crops and not around all these people. I don't know. But you're like, why am I here? I feel like I'm stuck. I feel like I've just been buried. And no, you have been planted. Because God is going to do something with your story. God is going to do more than you could ever hope for or imagine through your story. One of the things that I think about over and over and over and over again is that God never gets tired of comeback stories. God never gets tired of a comeback story. He does them again and again and again and again. And here's something else I know. Your greatest impact will be after your comeback. Your greatest impact will be after your comeback. let me give you some proof on this. Jesus was alive on earth for 33 years, but for the first 30 years, we have very little details. He basically has a 3.5-year run in the Gospels that we hear about. And then he's crucified, and he's died, and he's buried. And then he gets back out of the tomb. He still has his scars. And the impact that he has had for the last 2,000 years and counting dwarfs what he did in those 3.5 years. His impact after his comeback has been huge. And what I love is that when Jesus went to go see his disciples after the resurrection, like I said, the scars were still there. They were still on his hands. They were still on his side. Thomas used them as proof to be like, okay, Jesus, are you sure you're who you say you are? Like, he's like, Thomas, like, let me see those scars. Here's the deal. Some of you are carrying scars and you think they're marks of shame. You think that it's a story about what you wished you could forget. And what Jesus is going to say is, no. You're right. That should have never happened. But we're going to do something with those. We're going to set some other people free with those. What you thought was meant for evil, like we just sang about before I got up, what you thought was meant for evil, God's going to turn it and use it for something good. Your greatest impact is after your comeback. Guys, do you guys want some real-time proof of this? How many people were at the Stranahan for Easter, or they watched it online or something like that? Yeah, absolutely. Do you guys remember the girl Brooke who shared her story? Yeah, you do. Okay. She tells her story, for those of you guys that weren't there, she tells her story about what she's endured, what she's been through, the stuff that should have never happened to her. She shares her story on Easter. That was what, 4 weeks ago? I don't know. Somebody with math figured it out. And then last Sunday, like not years into the future, like we're talking in a matter of weeks, we baptized at least 2 to 3 people last Sunday who said, I was there on Easter Sunday. I heard Brooke's story. My story was similar. What God did for her, I want God to do for me. Do you understand how your story can transform someone else's? Brooke has already gotten people into heaven, not because like she made it happen, but she shared her story, and people are like, if God can do it for her, he can do it for me. If God can do it for him, he can do it for me. If God can do it for that couple, God can do it for us. Guys, our stories have power. And I have no idea what you're getting ready to put into this blank. But for some of us, we're going to fill in this blank and we're going to let it happen. Where the enemy meant blank for evil, but God will use it for good. God meant your divorce for evil, but he's going to use it for good. The enemy meant your divorce for evil, but God's going to use it for good. The enemy meant your addiction for evil, but God is going to use it for good. The enemy meant your bankruptcy for evil, but God is going to use it for good. The enemy meant, you know what it is. You know what you've been walking through, but God is going to use it for good. It's the story of the whole Bible. Your greatest impact will be after your comeback. And you can come back from any evil that has been done to you. It does not get to have the last word. It might take time. It might take counseling. It takes a community. But God is going to be cheering you on. And every time you share your story, some of the shame gets to fall off. Every time you share your story, some of the hurt gets a little bit duller. Every time you share your story, your identity as a beloved son or as a beloved daughter becomes that much more real. We overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. We tell our stories not because of like, hey, look at me, how awesome I is, but because of how good God is. If God can do it for me, he can do it for you. If God can do it for you, he can do it for someone else. And sometimes one of the greatest gifts that we can give someone is simply the gift of going second. You don't have to be super brave. Let me go first, and then you can come behind me. I want to kind of try this out right now in real time. I don't know how this is going to go. We'll see. If you guys would, just close your eyes, bow your heads with me. And I'm going to name some things. And if you have walked through these, and you know that God is going to redeem them and do something more, that if you know that the story of your life does not end with that season, when I name this thing, would you just stand Would you be willing to be courageous enough to let somebody else be able to see what you've walked through so that they know that they don't have to walk it alone, that they're not the first? So God, I want to pray right now for the people who have walked through bankruptcy, who've walked through financial loss. God, I want to pray for the people who've walked through neglect. They've been left alone when they never should have. God, I want to pray for the people who've walked through abuse of any kind. It should have never happened. God, I want to pray for the people who've walked through divorce. They were left, told that they were something they were not. God, I want to pray for the people who have walked through the loss of a loved one. They died way too young. They did everything they could. God, I want to pray for the people who are walking through just relational trauma. People have been not just mean, not just unkind. People have been cruel. People have said things that should have never been said. For all of you that are still with your eyes closed, just take a look around the room real quick. Look at how many, your story is not unique. Every person standing here is someone who knows what it's like to be in your shoes, who knows what it's like to have a season of life where you're like, oh, how do I come back? I can't, I don't know how, I'm out of options. But God specializes in comeback stories. God specializes in taking the worst and most broken parts of our story and using them for good.